When you decided to choose an arm in this case, you didn't choose the arm closest to his weight, did you?
It was representative enough, yes.
It was representative enough.
It was close enough, yes, sir.
Close enough. Wouldn't you want to get an arm most closely related to his actual weight?
I don't know that you can have custom-made ATDs.
You probably can't custom make them, but they have one that's 12 pounds. You know that, don't you?
Are you referring to the 95th percentile?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
So there's a 12-pound arm. Mr. O'Keefe's is 11.86 according to the statistics. You know that, right?
Yes.
You looked it up.
Yes.
You didn't tell us that on direct, though, did you?
I don't believe I was asked that.
No. Instead of choosing the 12-pound arm, which is 0.12 difference, you chose a much lesser weight, didn't you?
It was about 10 pounds, yes.
No, it wasn't about 10 pounds. It was less than 10 pounds. Let's be exact. You're a scientist. Let's be as precise as possible when we're talking about data. It was less than 10 pounds, wasn't it?
I think according to the spec sheet, I think it's 9.4 pounds total.
How about 9.38? You keep coming up a little bit. 9.38 pounds.
Sustained in that form.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph. Is that a photograph of your materials in this case?
Yes.
And in that photograph, it shows the arm that you used in your studies, doesn't it?
Correct.
And it shows that that arm weighs 9.38 pounds, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that is less than the 11.86 pounds of Mr. O'Keefe's arm, yes?
Correct, yes.
You didn't put that photograph in your PowerPoint to make it clear to everybody you were using an arm that was a much lesser weight, were you?
No, I didn't put that photograph.
I'd like to move this to evidence, please.
Okay. Any objection, Mr. Jackson?
No, you are. Thank you. Court's permission, I'd like to show this to the jury.
Just give us a minute. Let Madam Court Reporter mark it.
So 217.
Yes, now you can play it.
This is the arm that you used in all of your videos, right?
Correct, yes.
And you can see, could you zoom in, Ms. Gilman, on the weight? 9.38 pounds.
Yes.
There's a bigger difference between 9.38 and 11.86 than there is 12 and 11.86, isn't there?
Correct, yes.
So when you do the math, and have you done the math before on this? When you do the math, it's 26% difference, isn't it?
In terms of more force?
No, of mass, weight, 26% difference,
Okay.
right?
I'm going to trust you, yeah.
Well, do you have a calculator?
I do.
Can you do it?
Sure.
Okay. And before you do that, you took this from Mr. O'Keefe's 6'1". You used a crash test dummy that, what is the height on it?
Well, the ATD, I believe, is 5'7". The Rescue Randy, I think, is 6 feet tall.
We'll talk about the Rescue Randy later. We have questions about Randy. But let's talk about this. 5'9". You said 5'7". It's actually 5'9".
Sorry, 5'9", yes.
5'9". And it's 170 pounds?
171, I believe.
Mr. O'Keefe's not 170 pounds.
No, not his whole body.
He wasn't 5'9".
Correct.
Okay. So when you do the math and you take the 9.38 pounds based on the 171-pound doll, and you look at the percentage, doesn't it come out to 5.48% total body weight?
Yes.
Okay. And so the difference, when you look at it, it's a 26.3% difference from his actual weight, isn't it?
Correct, yes.
And so I'm probably at the 6th grade level on this, but isn't it very basic that the more something weighs, the slower something has to go to have damage? And if something weighs less, the other part that collides with the force has to go faster?
The force is going to be greater if the mass is greater.
So if you throw a 5-pound rock into a window, you can throw it slower to cause the same damage if you have a 2-pound rock.
I don't know if I agree with that analogy.
Will you agree that based on the 26% difference, in order to actually be accurate, to be specific, to be scientific, you then have to adjust the speeds that you presented on the demonstrations, and you have to reduce the speed by 26%.
I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that. You think that having a lighter arm, so what you're telling us is having a lighter arm will cause the exact same amount of damage to the taillight studies as a heavier arm. Is that what you're telling us?
Well, if you look at, for instance, the 29-mile-an-hour impact test, that's significantly more kinetic energy. So the momentum of a 6,000-pound vehicle moving at 24 miles an hour, 29 miles an hour, that's going to overcome whatever the mass is that it's hitting at that point.
You're sidestepping my question.
Sustained. Ask a question, Mr. Brennan. Just ask a question, no more.
My question is, are you telling us that having a lighter arm does not impact the damage in these tests as opposed to using the heavier arm?
Certainly not in the field test, no.
And so you disagree that when you look at the weights of those arms, do you disagree there's a 26.3% difference?
Yes.
You disagree?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Do you agree there was a 26.3% difference in the arm weight that you used opposed to John O'Keefe?
Yes, the hybrid arm compared to Mr. O'Keefe's arm, yes.
And you are denying that there needs to be an adjustment to your calculation because the mass, MA, is different. You're denying that.
I think, again, if you're, and this is something Dr. Rentschler, I believe, will
No, I want
touch
to
on.
talk to you. I don't want to talk to Dr. Rentschler.
Well, because when you're addressing the forces for injury and the mechanisms for injury, right, you would account for the difference in the weight.
So you're saying that it makes no difference that you use an arm that was 26% lighter. Is that what you're saying to us?
No, I don't think it would have made a significant difference, especially if you look at, for instance, if you're looking at the 95th percentile hand and the 50th percentile hand, they both weigh 1.25 pounds. They're the exact same weight. There's about a pound more roughly in the forearm and a pound more distributed in the upper arm.
But that's not my question. It's not whether it's significant or not. I'm asking you, are you saying under oath right now that a 26.3% difference had no impact on the calculations in that study? It would have no impact at all.
The calculations, yes, but in terms of the damage, no, I don't think that 1 pound difference, when we're talking about something that's 6,000 pounds, striking something that's, quite frankly, whether it's 9.4 or it's 11 something, it's not, you're not going to get a difference in the damage.
So why not just have a 3-pound arm up there?
Well, I think that's unreasonable, sir.
What's that?
I think that's unreasonable.
What's the difference? It's a 6,000-pound car, according to you. What's the difference between 26% and 40%?
Well, I don't even know that I agree with your percentage because, again, you're accounting for the whole part of the arm that goes up to here, which we did not strike that part.
It's, how much lighter? 2 pounds and what? How many ounces?
Sorry, what was your question?
How much lighter is it, the arm that you used?
In terms of a percentage?
No, in terms of weight. The weight. 9.38.
Right.
And Mr. O'Keefe, 11.86, right?
About 2.48.
And you're saying that makes no difference? None.
Not in the observed damage at those speeds, no.
Why didn't you use a 5-pound arm, sir?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Why didn't you use a 5-pound arm?
Again, I don't know that they make a 5-pound ATD arm.
You didn't tell us when you did these studies, you didn't disclose in your PowerPoint that you used an arm that was much lighter than Mr. O'Keefe's arm, did you?
I don't know that it was, I didn't give the weight in the presentation, no.
Let's take a look at some of your testing. The first one was at 10 miles per hour, test A. You remember that test, right?
Yes.
Now, 10 miles per hour, if you had taken 26% off, would you agree it would change the actual speed from 10 miles per hour to 7.67 miles per hour? If you did out the math, if you did it specifically, accurately, precisely, would you agree, using the wrong arm, you make the deductions and the calculations, that 10 mile per hour test would actually be 7.67 miles per hour? Would you agree with that?
I'm going to allow that.
No, because again, the arm is going to get accelerated up to that speed. So that the speed would still, that mass would still be accelerated up to 10 miles per hour. Same thing in the vehicle testing. It's going to be, given that weight difference, it's going to be accelerated up to that speed.
Now, can we see the video of test A, please? Now, this is your study, 10 miles per hour, you claim, with a arm that is 9.38 pounds, correct?
Correct.
Mr. O'Keefe, 11.86 pounds, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, this light on the end of this, you're trying to replicate the light on the back of a Lexus?
Correct.
If a Lexus at 6,000 pounds hits a person, the Lexus isn't stopping automatically, is it?
No, it would move at a common velocity with the arm.
It would continue to push forward through the arm, yes?
It may, yes.
And the arm can push into the light before the body turns, yes?
I don't know that I agree with that, no.
If the light on the Lexus, not at this speed, but if the light on a Lexus was broken or breaks and it hits the arm, it's not going to bounce off the arm, it's going to push through, isn't it?
It's going to move at a common velocity with the arm.
And that will move not only the arm, it will move the person's body, won't it?
It may, yes.
It may push the body, it may throw the body.
I don't know about throw.
And the light, if broken, will continue to press against the arm until there's separation. Isn't that fair to say?
It could, in some instances, again, it could bounce.
It could, because it's not always the same. It's a dynamic process, isn't it?
It is dynamic, yes.
You could do the test many times and get very different results, couldn't you?
I don't know that I agree with that.
Would you get the same result every time?
I think you would certainly get similar results.
Every time.
If you had the exact same impact location and speeds, yes.
Well, that's my point. What if the impact location moved a little bit? Could it change?
Well, is Dr. Welcher changing? I don't know if, again, I was relying on what he provided in his
This isn't on
report.
Dr. Welcher. I'm asking you.
Objection. It is on Dr. Welcher.
No, it's not.
Okay, so jurors, disregard that exchange between counsel. Next question.
If the body position changed, you may get a different result. Isn't that fair to say?
I was going after what Dr. Welcher had represented in his report and analysis. So we did testing to analyze his orientation that he had demonstrated in his report.
You don't like that question either?
Objection.
Sustained.
If the body position changed, it could change the result. True?
I don't know what you mean by body position. Do you mean the whole body, the arm? What part of the body?
Okay, let's start with the arm. If the arm position changes, it could change the result, couldn't it?
Well, I'm not aware of any other orientation that Dr. Welcher provided in his analysis report as to alternative orientations.
If the arm position changed, could it change the result?
Yes, I mean, I presume if you don't have your arm on the taillight, then yes, you'll probably get a different result.
What if it's bent in a different way? Could that change the result?
Again, I haven't reviewed anything that indicates that there was a different orientation that Dr. Welcher suggested.
You're a scientist, right? You can think. I'm asking you. Just a general question. Over here. If you bend the arm, could it change the result?
It could.
Thank you. Okay. When a pedestrian is struck, they are not held stationary on a harness, are they?
No.
In this case, the crash test dummy is on a harness,
Yes, he's supported.
strapped
Yes.
by its hips or pelvis.
Yes.
That's not real life. That's not how a pedestrian is usually when they're hit, right? They're not strapped to a harness, are they?
No, and again, the purpose of this test was to evaluate the arm. We're not looking at the whole body here with this test.
And when we talk about injuries, part of injuries is not just the impact, it's the drag, in this case, from the car, isn't it?
It could be, yes.
But when you put the dummy on a harness, restricting or restraining its movement, it is not going to replicate hitting somebody and their movement, including the drag, is it?
I don't know that I agree with that, because it will replicate, again, when we're talking about that impact pulse of 10 milliseconds, it will replicate that. And that's ultimately what we're after, is what's happening in that 10 millisecond window in terms of the contact and the damage and the acceleration.
I know that's what you're after. What I'm asking you is when you end it, when the light stops, unlike a Lexus, and the dummy is stationary, unlike a person, it affects the aftermath, the drag and the push after, doesn't it?
Yes, the kinematics would be different, likely, if it's not restrained like that.
In real life, the pedestrian usually is not restrained, are they?
Correct.
In real life, a 6,000-pound Lexus, upon contact with an arm, doesn't usually stop on a dime, does it?
No.
Could I have the photo from test A, please? And so there is no break, but there is a crack in this light that was a result of this experiment where this light hits that restrained dummy, yes?
Yes.
And this is at 10 miles per hour in your world and 7.67 if you take off the 26% weight.
Objection.
Sustained as to that form.
We can move to test B, please. Now this test B, a similar test, it has the same limitations, doesn't it? This dummy is restrained at the pelvis.
Yes.
Could you show the video, please? There's two videos. We can see the first one. And was the dummy restrained by its head as well?
Yes.
Was its arm restrained in any way?
It was tethered, but it was free to move.
This test you have is 17 miles per hour with the arm that's 9.38 pounds. Mr. O'Keefe, 11.86 pound arm. If you consider that 26% difference, wouldn't it be fair to say that this test, rather than replicate 17 miles per hour, would actually replicate 12.6 miles per hour?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, can you answer that?
Not the way it's phrased, no.
And so looking at this test, test B, which you say is 17 miles per hour, can you do a calculation for the 26% difference, or is that something that you don't think is fair?
I don't think that'd be a fair way to characterize it. Again, if no matter what the mass is there, if you're accelerating it, if you're impacting at 17, that arm is going to move at 17.
Well, not just the movement, the damage. If this arm was 5 pounds, do you think the test would have the same exact result?
If it's 5 pounds,
Yes,
probably would be less damage.
it'd be less damage. So to get this amount of damage, you would have to increase the weight, right?
Sorry, what was your question?
To get this amount of damage, you couldn't use a 5-pound arm. There would be less damage with a 5-pound arm.
Correct.
Right, because the less weight you use, the less damage at that speed. That's
Correct.
basically how it works.
Correct.
Okay. So, in this test, if we could run that back again, you have a restrained dummy at the hips and the head. There's no follow-through of the light or the body that's attached to that arm, correct? And at this speed, you can see the shards of taillight. You can see them move, can't you?
When you say move, you mean just
Not stationary.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving from the taillight as they brake.
Detached from the taillight.
Correct, they're
And that
broken.
could create a debris field, yes?
Yes.
And you can see them floating in the air, some of them actually floating and then touching the sweater. Do you see that?
Possibly. Some of it might be, again, some of that polyurethane foam.
Yeah, some might be. And why don't we play it again so we can see clearly? Some might be taillight shards too, right? That black object spinning, that's not poly foam, is it?
No, it would not be.
That'd be taillight shard, right?
Correct.
And so, even at this speed, you can see in this type of collision, there is significant, bless you, significant amount of taillight shards that are broken from the taillight and spewing into the air, yes?
Well, I think on the one of the slides I had, I think I showed the fragments that were left, and from what I recall, I think there was 4 pieces from the taillight,
Yeah.
from the lens.
If you could put that back a little so Dr. Wolfe can see it again, to the point of the collision. Even at this speed, go ahead. Stop. You can see pieces, large, small, medium, maybe even microscopic, are now breaking off from that taillight and being littered into the air, aren't they?
Yes, there are pieces coming off.
If we can go to test C, please. Now, in test C, you actually use only an arm. Isn't that fair to say?
Correct.
You don't use a body or a crash test dummy.
No.
You don't, in fact, this is not the 12-pound arm either. This is the 9.38-pound arm.
Correct.
And when you do this test, you have the arm, it's basically just an object suspended in the air, isn't it?
Yes.
And you said, I think on direct examination, I think you said that this is the same as if it was on the dummy. Is that your testimony?
Well, in terms of, again, the amount of weight that would be interacting with the taillight, whether it's attached to the dummy or not, what's in direct contact is going to be the same.
Well, the fact that it's just floating up in the sky like that, it's very different than if it was attached to a person or a dummy, isn't it?
In terms of how it moves immediately after the impact, yes.
Not just how it moves, as far as the impact. Isn't it different?
I don't know that I agree with that.
Okay. Well, wouldn't you say that in addition to the arm, if you had another 200 plus pounds being held down by gravity, that would affect the force that's acting on the arm?
Well, the arm, again, is going to be accelerated, but the center of mass of the body's not going to see that acceleration.
Have you testified before in this case about the importance of the full body and gravity?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Have you testified before in this case about the effect of gravity and the full force of a body as opposed to just an arm?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember whether you thought it important on a previous time you testified that there was significance to the arm would be attached to a 200 plus pound body and there was the issue of gravity that would affect force?
From what I recall, I think that had to deal with whether or not the pedestrian would be projected based upon an interaction with the arm or a full-on center of gravity hit, right? When we're only hitting the arm, we're not hitting the CG of the body.
You did test B, and you claim it was at 17 miles per hour, test B,
Correct.
and we saw the damage. This is at 15 miles per hour, test C. Could you play this, please? It might be a delay, so you could fast forward a little bit, please. How many times do you think that arm spun around?
I don't know.
That's not what would happen to a person who got hit. Their arm wouldn't spin through their body like that, would it?
Correct, it
Their
would
arm
not.
wouldn't spin that many times.
No.
There'd be the pull of their body weight, yes?
I'm sorry, what was your
There'd be
question?
the pull of their body weight,
The body weight, yeah, would affect the movement afterwards, yes.
gravity, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, there's a reason why you do this test at 15 miles per hour. Is there a photo related to this, to the damage to the taillight? There is a reason why at 15 miles per hour, the damage is much different than the other test at 17 miles per hour, isn't there?
Correct.
Right, because at 17 miles per hour, you have a dummy that is strapped by a harness in its pelvis, and when it's hitting the arm, it's affecting it much differently than just a arm floating in air. Yes?
No, I don't agree with that. The primary reason there's a difference in the damage is because of the amount of the arm that's outstretched and interacting with the taillights. There's a difference in those two tests.
And so the body and the weight of the body, you're saying, has nothing to do with the amount of damage.
Not in these tests, no.
So when somebody gets hit, does the body weight have anything to do with the damage? Not just the area that gets hit. Does the body weight affect it at all?
Not in terms of the impact, like the rest of the body, it's not going to matter if, for instance, only my hand, like in that last test we just saw, it was the hand and the wrist, how much my stomach weighs, my head weighs, is not going to affect the damage to that taillight in that interaction.
And by the way, this test, you said 15 miles per hour. If you consider the 26%, you're only at 11.1 miles per hour. Is that the right math?
Again, I don't agree with that because if you look at the data and you integrate the acceleration data to get the speed, right, that we saw in those plots, the hand basically gets up to, I think it was 14 or 15 miles an hour. It reaches that common velocity of the vehicle.
Let's go to test F. On test F, you placed the dummy more behind the vehicle, didn't you?
Correct.
And when you test and you put it more behind the vehicle, this is more of a full impact than it is a clipping, isn't it?
Certainly, yes.
And when you put this dummy behind the car, this was not a legitimate crash test dummy. It was a different type of dummy, wasn't it?
Yes, it's called a Rescue Randy.
A Rescue Randy. And that is not typically the type of dummy that you're going to use for crash tests, is it?
I wouldn't agree with that.
When you did the Rescue Randy in crash test F, did you use the 12-pound arm or did you stick with the 9.38?
The hybrid arm wasn't attached to the Rescue Randy. And
The hybrid arm was not. Is that what you said, or it was?
it was not. No, not in the full impact test.
Okay, so what was the weight of the arm on the Rescue Randy?
I don't know specifically the weight of the arm. I know that the total mass of the Rescue Randy was 200 pounds.
Isn't the weight of the arm important when you're talking about impact with the arm?
I don't think relative to the rest of the mass of the body.
So now the mass of the body counts, but before it didn't.
Objection.
Sustained in that form.
Okay.